Hello, everyone, and welcome to, I think, is going to be a funny and fun edition of Training Unleashed. Today, we have an amazing guest, but before we go, on behalf of the Learning Network, I want to thank you, the listener, for being here today. I really appreciate it. Also want to thank our sponsors, C-Suite TV and CC Radio, and remind people you can catch us on YouTube at Training Unleashed Network. I have Frank King, the mental health comedian. And I know what you're thinking, mental health comedian doesn't seem to really go, but it does. This guy's got an amazing background. He wrote for The Tonight Show for over 20 years. He has been on stage with some of the most amazing comedians ever, including Jerry Seinfeld, Adam Sandler, Jeff Foxworthy. And the interesting thing about him is he's between TEDx's and TEDs, done more TEDx's and TEDs than Bill Gates has. He's done 12 of them. And let me give you that softball welcome question. What is a mental health comedian?
Well, I started comedy in the 4th grade at age 9. I told my first joke. Kids laughed. Teacher was hysterical. She had to excuse herself to go to the teacher's lounge. Years later, I asked her why. I bumped into her at the Winn-Dixie grocery store. Miss Dark, why did you excuse yourself to go to the teacher's lounge? She goes, Frank, I was laughing so hard and I couldn't stop. I was afraid you'd take it wrong and I'd break your little heart. And then she said, what do you do for a living? I said, I'm a stand-up comedian. She goes, well, duh. I decided at that moment that I was going to be a stand-up comic. 12th grade, talent show. Nobody had ever done stand-up. I did stand-up. I won. Of course, I beat the accordion player and the folk dancers. Not a real, brilliant victory, but still. Told my mama, I'm going to LA to be a comedian. She said, son, you're going to college first. I don't care what you do when you get done. You can be a goat herder for all I care, but you, my son, will be a goat herder with a college degree. So I went to UNC Chapel Hill, picked up a couple of degrees, neither of which I've used since then, but that's not the point. A good liberal arts education never hurt anybody. And moved to San Diego with the insurance company I started working for in Raleigh. They transferred me to San Diego, fortuitous in that in San Diego, there's a branch of the world-famous Comedy Store, the one up on Sunset. April 1st, 1984, got on stage for my first open mic night. Halfway through my 5 minutes, I heard a voice inside my head. You're home. Next thought was, I'm going to do this for a living. I had no idea how. As a matter of fact, I've threatened many times since then to write a keynote called, What Could You Do If You Didn't Know No Better? Because I had no idea how difficult it was to make a living doing stand-up. I might not have done it had I known. And in December of 85, I said to my girlfriend, now my wife of 37 years, I'm going on the road to be a stand-up comedian. Do you want to come along for the ride? Figuring she'd go, oh, hell no. She goes, yeah. So we gave up the apartment, our jobs, crawled into my tiny little Dodge Colt, and we were on the road together, 2,629 nights in a row, nonstop, no home, 7 years and change. Also, an unofficial record. Yeah.
Wow. So I have to ask, what was the joke you told when you were in 4th grade?
Oh, it was, I have to wear glasses because my entire family is terribly nearsighted. I wrote a joke that we were descended from the people of the island of Myopia, who was conquered over and over because they never saw the enemy coming. We're all very nearsighted. Thank you. But I'm terribly vain, was then, am now. And back in the 60s, Evan, there weren't fashion frames. Girls had cat eye glasses, kind of a cat eye in a couple of colors. Guys had what is now very popular, black plastic Ray-Ban sort of. And understand this. I'm wearing hush puppies, polyester slacks, a band lawn shirt. You add a pair of those glasses, and that's just like head to toe birth control. No woman's ever going to get anywhere close to you as long as you're dressed like that. So my teacher knew I had to wear my glasses. And so she thought the way to do it, she thought maybe I wasn't because I was worried about what the other kids would say. She thought, let's pull the Band-Aid off. Get Frank to the front of the room, turn him away from the class. And she did. Put my glasses on me, turned me back to the class, and she said, see, you look intelligent. And I said, yes, that would explain the laughter. That was my first joke, an ad lib, and she was hysterical. She told me no child before or since had ever made her laugh that hard. So that's now when I got into stand-up comedy. I always wanted Evan to make a living and a difference beyond just the 45 minutes of endorphins at a comedy club. I just could not figure out how to make that difference. And the way you make a difference is you become a speaker. And speakers, the difference between a funny speaker and a speaker who's funny, the speaker who is funny has content, takeaways, action items, calls to action. You teach the audience something. But I had no idea. And then I told, I did a jump, by the way, from club comedy to corporate comedy in 1995. And people ask, what's the difference between a club comic and a corporate comic? $5,000 a night plus travel. Several of my purest comedy friends, comedian friends, said, you went corporate, you sold out. I said, yes, I'm a whore, but I'm a high price whore. So until the end of 2007, I was doing corporate comedy. That year, 96 engagements that year, over $200,000 just telling jokes. So the problem was in 2008, as you well know, the world economy cratered.
Yeah.
And we lost everything in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And that's when I learned what the barrel of my gun tasted like. Spoiler alert, I did not pull the trigger. It's okay to laugh. The audience usually does nervously. And then I tell the story. A friend of mine was at a keynote recently. He'd never heard me say I didn't pull the trigger. He came up afterwards and said, and I quote, hey, man, how come you didn't pull the trigger? I said, hey, man, could you try to sound slightly less disappointed? I didn't pull the trigger. But that was, I didn't know at the time, but that was the beginning of my speaking career because meeting planners and speakers bureau said to me, Frank, we love you. We can't pay you $5,000 anymore just to be funny. You have to teach the audience something. They forced me into teaching the audience something. So I have a friend named Judy Carter. She wrote the Comedy Bible, the New Comedy Bible, and a book called The Message of You. Turn your life into a money-making speaking career. She gave me a copy. She said, Frank, read it. You will figure it out. I went into it thinking I got nothing. Nothing. And then about halfway through, it hit me. I do have something to teach. Given my near suicide, the fact that I live with 2 mental illnesses, the fact that there are more nuts in my family than in a squirrel turd, I thought I can keynote on suicide prevention if I got some training, and I did. And the second hurdle was I've been a comic for 2.5 decades. Who's going to believe I can do anything serious? So that's when I did my first TEDx on suicide prevention to prove that I could do something serious with humor. For example, my first joke in my first TEDx, I said, I did some research. See how other people handle the topic of suicide prevention or suicide on the TED.com site. I figured there'd be 2-3 dozen talks on suicide. There were 3, only 3. And then I said to the audience, then it hit me. Well, if you're really good at suicide, you're not going to be recording a TEDx talk. At which point they realized it was going to be serious, but with humor. So that's where the humor is, by the way, in the topic, not jokes, but funny personal anecdotes. The mental health comedian is a creation of a friend of mine. I was struggling to figure out my message. When I figured out the message, now what do you get for a URL, a domain name? And a friend of mine said, you are the mental health comedian. Oh my God. It gave me chills. And I bought it, and that's my brand, mental health comedian. And that's often what gets me the engagement. They want the lived experience, the near suicide and such. They want the learning. But if you can leaven it with a little organic, tasteful, well-placed humor to make the difficult subject more digestible, that seems to be the thing that pushes me over the top to get the engagement.
Well, I think your topic is like so important, particularly with younger generations, with the pandemic. I have a trans son, and I think the statistics are like 43% of trans people commit suicide, which is crazy bad.
Yes, which by the way is 10 times the rate of their binary peers. 4% roughly binary young people.
And so I think what you're doing with comedy resonates with me because you're making it easier to have a conversation people don't have.
Yes.
And maybe, everyone listening to the show is probably happy that you're here because you got great personality.
I'm happy to be here too, by the way. That's why
Yes.
I came.
But what I love to do is find a way to take what you know and share it with the audience so they can take it and apply it.
Ah,
Now, I don't think that they're necessarily going to be comedians. Um, but what advice do you give to people in business and in the corporate world to help with suicide prevention that people can practically take and use?
well, what I tell them is after I give them the horrible statistics, I believe a good way to start off a keynote or a TEDx is with one of three things: a quote, a startling statistic, or three questions. And I normally start mine with a startling statistic. Every year in the United States, 8 million people roughly seriously think about suicide. 1.4 million attempt. And I think last year, 50,000 died by suicide. When I started my first TEDx talk in 2014, it was 39,000. So then as I go, it's one every 9 minutes, by the way, in the US, one every 40 seconds worldwide. At some point after that, I said, look, here's the good news. 8 out of 10 people who are suicidal are ambivalent. 9 out of 10 give hints in the last week leading up to an attempt, which means you can make a difference, you can save a life, and you can do it by doing something as simple as what we're doing right here. And that is having a conversation if you know how. And before I leave here, you will know how.
That's powerful. So the simple follow-up question to that is how?
Well, I get asked, how do you know somebody's depressed? This is not an exhaustive list of symptoms, but my top three. They uh, they either overeat or can't eat. They either oversleep or can't sleep. They are having difficulty getting out of bed in the morning, so they're often late for school or work, but seem to rally in the afternoon, become a different person. And here's one you can observe visually. Normally, they're pretty well put together, but last couple of days, hair's kind of dirty, clothes aren't quite so clean. It may be because they're having trouble getting out of bed and simply running a little wash and taking a shower. Now, the next step is um, you have to ask them if they admit they're depressed or you believe they're depressed. I say, go with your gut. You have to ask them, are they having thoughts of suicide? Just like that. Now, let's say you suspect they are, but they don't admit it. How would you know? Well, they talk about death and dying quite a bit. A lot of younger people Googling death, dying, or how to die by suicide. You catch them. There was one young man that I learned about. His parents didn't take him seriously about his thoughts of suicide. So what he did was he left his laptop open on the dining room table to a page that said how to die by suicide. They were like, oh God. Uh, so talk about death and dying, Googling death and dying, accumulating the means. If you catch them stockpiling medications or buying a firearm, if they are getting their affairs in order, going around, visiting people they haven't visited in quite some time, they're often saying goodbye. Or if they're giving away prized possessions because they want to make sure the possessions go to the people they want them to go to when they're gone. On that score, I spoke to a group of dentists. 6 months later, I got a call from one of the dentists. He says, Frank, you're not going to believe it. You'll think this is funny. He and his wife were downsizing from like a 4,000 square foot, 2-story house to a ranch style 1,300 square foot house. So what he did was all the stuff he wanted to get rid of, put it on Facebook. In the Facebook, a lot of it was free. So another dentist who'd been at the same meeting saw he was giving away all this stuff that he knew this guy really valued. He called him up. Man, are you suicidal? Frank said if you're giving away possessions. He goes, no, we're downsizing. Oh, but thanks, thank you for your concern. So yeah, if you're getting your affairs in order, and here's a counterintuitive one that extremely dangerous, and I've heard more than several times this has happened. If they've been depressed for a long time and now they're happy for no apparent reason. Well, you're happy because they're happy, but they may be happy because they've chosen time, place, and method, and they know the pain is coming to an end. That's what people should know about suicide. Most often, the person who does it does not want to kill himself. I didn't want to kill myself. I just wanted to end the pain. I mean, there are situations where they do want to kill themselves, but majority of the time, it's just a way to end the pain. So let's say they tell you they are suicidal. They're upfront with it. What do you say? Well, you say, do you have a plan? And if they have a plan, you say, okay, what is the plan? And if it's detail, time, place, method, you need to get them to a mental health facility pronto. I did a speech in Cincinnati on a construction site for a big construction company in Cincinnati. And this happens almost every time I speak. I say, look, we're going to do a little general Q&A. However, if there's a story you want to share or a question you want to ask and you don't want to ask in front of everybody, I'll hang out another 30, 45 minutes and take them individually. So I'm there. There's 6 men in line, which is unusual, but most people on the site were men. 6 guys, each one had a question or story. The last one was a young black man, I'm guessing mid-20s. He's crying so hard he can't speak. So I waited and I said, what's up? He said, I haven't slept in 2 days. I work on the 5th floor of this building. I think about jumping off every day. I said, why is that? He said, because I've lost 3 people close to me in the last year to violence, including my daughter who died in my arms.
Wow.
So the guy who hired me, the meeting planner / HR, was standing not far away, and I waved him over. I said, you need to go back to the office or take this young man by the hand, go back to the office, find the binder, the EAP, Employee Assistance Program, find the nearest mental health facility, and get him there immediately for evaluation because he's circling the drain. And all in front of the young man. And a couple of months later, I had occasion to talk to the meeting planner, and I was terrified to ask. Finally, I worked up my courage. Whatever happened to that nice young black man? Frank, he got evaluated, medicated, he's back on the job. That's the power of starting the conversation. I would imagine none of his workmates had ever heard any of that before. I'm not sure how much of his family had ever heard any of that before. Because most of the time, people will tell me a story. It starts like this. I've never told anybody this. I get that a lot. But if I go on stage and I'm vulnerable about having 2 mental illnesses and near suicide, the vulnerability, I believe, is a superpower. It gives other people permission to give voice to these things without worrying about recrimination. That's why they line up. So,
It's interesting that you say this because I've never focused on suicide per se, but I have focused on mental illness and in people I work with, people that are friends of mine. And a lot of times I vulnerably share that I suffer from depression and I'm medicated. And I think so many people don't realize that there is real help.
yes.
Real help. And, you know, I guess what I would say is people could use help even if they're not suicidal, if they exhibit those traits that you were talking about earlier.
Yes.
And there's really no greater gift in this world than to have an impact on other people's lives.
My goal is to save a life a day.
Yeah. Big goal. Very big
And
goal.
988 is the new 3-digit suicide prevention lifeline.
I did not know that.
And text line 988. Yep. And they will tell you, don't wait until you're standing on the ledge to call us. If you feel yourself spiraling downward toward suicide, call us before it gets to the point where, you're out on the ledge.
What I'm hearing for our audience is and correct me if I get this wrong, because I think this is important,
Okay.
is they need to be observant. They need to be looking at people that they work with, and for that matter, friends in their lives, and looking at their habits, looking, are they having trouble sleeping? Are they not dressing? Are they not showering? Are they binge eating, binge candy, etc.?
Mm-hmm.
And that if they start to notice these things, they have to have the courage to have a meaningful conversation.
Yes.
And I think that courage is the difficult part.
Yes, uncomfortable conversation. I mean,
Yeah.
really don't. I mean, are you depressed? What do you mean am I depressed? I came across a company. It's called CLOW Manufacturing. If you've ever seen a fire hydrant, you'll see the letters probably CLOW down the side. I thought it stood for, containment liquid something. It's a guy's name. And they brought me in to speak at two safety meetings back to back. They have a safety meeting every year, and suicide prevention was the topic. And they changed company protocol, SOP. If somebody asks you, are you depressed? By company SOP, standard operating procedure, you have to say, thank you for asking. To take the onus off simply asking. I'm not depressed. We have a new baby. I haven't slept in 2 nights because he's colicky. Oh, okay. I just want to check because something I thought. So I thought that was a brilliant idea. Take the onus off the person so they feel comfortable asking.
That is a brilliant idea. And I question seriously what percentage of companies actually have any policies around this topic.
Very
Uh,
few.
yeah. And how enlightening it is, and we talk a lot about things to make the workplace a better place for people. You know, inclusion, D and I, but the inclusion part is so important, which is a good thing, but it's not going to the step and level you're going to. So I want to acknowledge you for that.
Well, thank you.
Frank, our listeners, I'm sure, are very fascinated by you. I think it'd be a great service to the audience if you can talk about yourself and what you do, because you do more than just speak.
Mhm.
And please share with everyone what you do and how to get a hold of you.
I got nothing. Uh, yeah, I've never been accused of being humble, by the way. No, I speak on suicide prevention as a workplace health and safety priority. And I only market to six industries, the top six at-risk occupations in the US. And by the way, here's how bad it is in construction. 1,000 people on average die by accident every year in construction.
Yeah.
5,000 die by suicide. They're
Wow.
5 times more likely to jump off the building than fall off.
Wow.
So I focus on. I mean, there's five of
What are the other four?
Construction, agriculture, dentists, veterinarians, physicians, and attorneys.
Wow. I
Top six.
knew about dentists because when I was a child, I didn't know if it stayed dentist, but as a child, my orthodontist committed suicide, which, as like a 14-year-old is, a terrible thing to have happen. And my parents told me that dentistry was an issue, but I wasn't sure if they told me that just to make me feel better,
Yeah.
whether it was true or not. But then lawyers,
Well, you think about this. And by the way, dentists, veterinarians, and physicians, the thing they have in common nowadays, most 4 out of 5 leave professional school with $500,000 in student loan debt before they open a practice. So suicide is not the big killer. It's stress induced or exacerbated mental and physical ailments, high blood pressure, heart attack, stroke, depression. Attorneys, it is an adversarial process. It's a lot of arguing plus a lot of hours, billable hours. If you want to make partner, you need to produce billable hours. And it's in attorneys in those three medical professions, it's sort of like the Hunger Games. If you're going to go to a professional school, you need to graduate top of your class in high school and then top of your class in undergraduate school. So again, there are only so many slots, like the Hunger Games. There's so many slots, and then you get into medical school or dental school or veterinary school, and I mean it is difficult. It's very difficult. And like I said, you graduate with all this debt before you open the doors of your practice. So it's
hmm,
it's the pressure. Yeah, attorneys are 3 times more likely to be alcoholics than the average person.
wow,
Hmm.
very interesting. Tell us more about what you do, because I know you speak,
Yep.
but I know you have other programs and things. We have a lot of people here, trainers and things that could maybe use some of your other services.
I coach TEDx talks, how to land and leverage a TEDx talk. I do it unlike any other TEDx coaching outfit I can find. I do an hour a week on Zoom, one-on-one, until we get your TEDx, or we both die trying. So it's, you know, although 2 of my clients have said to me, Frank, I get the whole, or we both die trying, but I know you're suicidal. I want a clause in there that says you won't kill yourself before I get my TEDx. Yeah. So, but because you never know how long it's going to take. I've had clients get it in the first dozen applications. One of my clients took 90 applications in over a year. So I just don't put a tail end on it. And if you have more than one idea, I have a client with 3 TEDx's. I helped him get every one of them because he had 3 ideas. So that's why I don't put a tail end and I do it one-on-one. I don't do group, group coaching live for TEDx. Then I have another program called Make Money Speaking, how to make money speaking on cruises at colleges, corporations, and associations. Because there are a lot of programs out there that help you be a better speaker. What there seems to be a lack of, thank goodness, is how do you make money speaking? How do you monetize that? How do you get $5,000 plus travel, starting from scratch and you've never done one of those before? That's one of the questions I get from my clients. How can I get $5,000 for a keynote? I've never done a keynote. I go, here's the secret. You ask for it. Yeah, and practice in the mirror in the bathroom. 5K plus travel, 5,000 plus travel, 5. So it just rolls off your tongue when they ask you. So it's that monetization, and it's very simple. Pick a problem. Jane Atkinson, wealthy speaker coach, says pick a lane. Pick one lane in speaking and be the expert or thought leader. Had a speakers bureau say to me after I told them I speak on suicide prevention, what else? That's it. What? That's all I speak on. That's who I am. That's my brand. I want to be known simply for that. So pick a problem you want to solve. Obviously, mine is suicide. Pick 3 to 6 industries that have the problem and are willing to pay you to help solve it. And when a construction outfit calls me and wants to know about booking me, I don't have to convince them. Suicide prevention is a great idea. They know that. They're just trying to figure out which suicide prevention speaker they're going to use. So pick a problem, pick a lane. Find 3 to 6 ideal clients who have that problem and are willing to pay you. And then, this is the magic, figure out what associations they belong to, because the associations have to have a meeting every year by their bylaws. People pay to come, they got money to pay speakers, and you're getting paid for the keynote, but you're also showcasing for everybody in the room because everybody in the room has the exact same problem.
Yeah.
So I can often pick up another gig or two, another booking or two from the audience. So problem, ideal clients, and what associations they belong to if you want to. And by the way, my advice to entrepreneurs is very similar. Pick one thing that you can do better than anyone else and just do that. No side hustles. I've got 2 businesses here in town that are friends of mine. One guy owns 3 radio stations, the other auto body shop. Both are amazingly successful. So I thought to myself in late 2017, what do they have in common? And then I thought, well, they do one thing and they do it really, really well. And that's January 1st, 2018 is when I became a suicide prevention speaker, period, full stop. I mean, I've got other speeches. I can do stand-up comedy at your banquet, 45 minutes. I can auctioneer at your fundraiser, but I only market one thing. I want to be known for that. The idea being that if somebody comes looking for what you have to offer, they don't just want anybody, they want you.
Yeah.
It's a long game. It's happened a few times. The long game to develop a reputation like that. In radio, they would tell you, you need to be known before you're needed. That's why you hear the same tire store commercial every morning on the way to work in the car. Only 3% of the people of that day are going to need a tire, but everybody who's listening in the car at some point is going to need a tire.
Need a tire. Yeah.
And you want to be top of mind. That's why I have 5 posts a week on LinkedIn on how to make money speaking, education, no sales, just how to make money speaking. 2 newsletters, same thing, how to make money speaking. So that when you decide, and my outbound LinkedIn is to anybody who's got the word speaker in their profile. So that's my ideal client for the how to make money speaking and TEDx is speakers.
And actually, it's LinkedIn is how we connected.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I decided 3 years ago, I'm doing a poor job on all the social media platforms. I think I need to pick one. And just by chance that week, I got a little video from a guy who specializes in LinkedIn marketing. And I watched his video and he's joining the conversation in my head. Don't you just want to go deep on one, do a really good job? I'm like, yeah. So I called him up and I've had 6 million impressions in the last 33 months, about $150,000 in conversions, meaning people signed up to coach. LinkedIn called me to contribute to an article on how do you become a keynote speaker. And I said to the woman, I'd be happy to, but first I got to tell you something. She goes, what do you want to tell me? I didn't know LinkedIn had a telephone. Yeah, because you can't call LinkedIn.
No, you cannot.
No.
You cannot.
I've got a lot of ancillary benefits. A TEDx in India at a university found me, liked my take on mental health, invited me to a virtual TEDx. Absolutely. So, I mean, It's by going deep. I believe, yeah, that you go deep, not wide. Pick a lane, pick a half a dozen ideal clients, then pick one social media, figure out where your potential clients are. I don't care if it's Twitter, X, or Instagram, wherever they are. That's where you need to be, I believe.
So first off, this is great advice, not just for speaking, but for life and for business, and how to focus and be good at what you do at work. But I know you have an offer, and I know you said, I think your website is thementalhealthcomedian.com.
Yeah, actually, without the V, just mentalhealthcomedian.com.
Okay, mentalhealthcomedian.com.
Mm-hmm.
Would you please share your offer with everyone?
Well, my Make Money Speaking site is, get this, howtomakemoneyspeaking.com. I got that this year. I was trying to figure out a URL for that program, How to Make Money Speaking. My wife, bless her heart, doesn't know much about online. She yells from the kitchen, how about howtomakemoneyspeaking.com? I'm thinking, yeah, that's going to be available in 2024. Oh my God, it's available. I bought it like that. I do have one. Here's my offer. Here's my latest offer, Evan. Because of LinkedIn, a marketing company in Morocco found me. The gentleman, Rashid, saw my 12 TEDx talks, and he did a little research to see if they put together online learning courses. He went looking to see if anybody else had a comprehensive TEDx coaching online, from how do you find the application to how do you monetize the damn thing. No one. There is not another online comprehensive. There's a couple hours here, a couple hours there, but so he approached me. He said, I found you on LinkedIn. Well, duh. And he said, look, we normally charge $4,000 or $5,000 up front and 30% on each sale, but you have the entire market to yourself. You're like a unicorn. You got 12 talks. If you'll record the videos, we'll help you script it, and you record the videos. We'll just take 20% for everyone we sell. And so Andy said, we're going to build a speaker community, a platform where the speakers can hang out together. There's a group discussion. There's a DM. You can DM other people in the program. There's a button for Study Buddy if you want an accountability partner. We're going to do 2 live events a week. One, Ask Frank Anything. And then the one in the middle of the week will be some expert, a friend of mine who talks about some aspect of speaking. So not just an online course, but a speaker community to go along with it. So that's my latest project. I'm trying to think the best way to get hold. The website is up, but the only way to get into it is as a member of the, get this. I named it College of Speaking Knowledge.
URL was not available or was available?
Yeah. College of Speaking. Well, I actually ripped off the radio guy because he has a College of Radio Knowledge. And so I thought, oh man, College of Speaking Knowledge. Thank you, John. So if they want to email me, probably is the best way to. We're grand opening is June 3rd.
So your offer was the 5-star branding toolkit.
Yes. Yep. Which I created because the one thing that most TEDx speakers fall down on is they think when it goes up on YouTube, the world's going to be the path to your door. And that's not true. I mean, thousands and thousands of videos go up on YouTube every day, and the local TEDx committee doesn't really push the videos. So I thought the vacuum is the branding. How do you leverage this thing? To raise your speaking fee or get more bookings, or if you're an author, sell more books, or if you're raising money for your favorite cause, round up volunteers and donations. So that's what the marketing is. It's how to take something like a TEDx and market it. And you want to have your marketing plan ready the day it goes up on YouTube, so you can pull the trigger the moment it appears on YouTube and begin leveraging it.
So you got this toolkit.
Yep.
That helps you market things, which maybe people could look at and how they market training in their own company for that matter.
Anything, yes.
How do they get the toolkit?
I have no idea, Evan.
Okay, I can tell you how they get the toolkit. Okay, you can go to trainingunleashed.net and search for Frank King, and you can read the bio, or you can go to the YouTube, which is Training Unleashed Network on YouTube.
Right.
and there'll be information there. Unfortunately, and sometimes we can get in the bios, but like if you're on iTunes or all these other places that people listen to this podcast, it's sometimes hard to get a good description. But there's a URL to get the toolkit, which is an awesome thing. Frank, we got to wrap up, but we always wrap up with one tip. If you had one tip to share with the audience, what would that one tip be?
The riches are in the niches.
And what does that mean?
Well, that means if you're a speaker, pick a lane and find your ideal clients. If you're an entrepreneur and you're starting a business, I'm not taking my car for auto body repair to a guy who does auto body repair and taxidermy. I want the guy who specializes. That's the idea. Or niche being LinkedIn. Of all the
Yeah,
platforms, I picked LinkedIn. That's my niche. And I went deep, not wide. That's why I say the riches are in the niches. It's people nowadays. In 95, when I started speaking comedy, they'd take some guy with 6 keynotes and pick one.
yeah,
Nowadays, when they land on your website, they need to see exactly what they're looking for. Join the conversation in the meeting planner's head.
I love that. It's a great tip. You've been a great guest. On behalf of the Learning Network, I want to thank you for being a guest. I want to thank the listeners for listening. Thank our sponsors, C-Suite TV and C-Suite Radio. Of course, check us out on our new YouTube channel, Training Unleash Network. Everyone have a fantastic day.